Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Inside Scoop. This is actually part 3 because I've enjoyed the conversation so much. If you haven't listened to the first 2 episodes, I encourage you to do so. I am sitting down with Greg Rubendall, who is the director of coaching for Livermore Fusion Soccer Club. And Greg, we've talked about your background. We talked about your coaching education experiences. Then we went to your experiences abroad, some great tips on parents. We did some shorts. Greg, I've enjoyed it. So now we're in the final piece of this little series that I'm calling part of our Perfect Soccer Parent series. And you're actually the first guest in this series. So welcome to the show. Introduce yourself, and then I'm going to tee it up and ask you a few questions.
So first and foremost, Neil, I'll give you as much time as you want. This so far has been the best conversation I've had about football in a long time because my focus has always been on the recreational parent and coach. It's, again, how I got into this game. It was because of my parents and my brother and sister that I fell in love with this game, and they afforded me so many opportunities within this game. And the game has given me so much joy. So I just want to, my gratitude, sincere gratitude to you for this. I forgot the question.
No. So I haven't even asked the questions yet, but that's a good way. Okay, now, just for the record.
I'm number one. That's what I want to say. I'm number one. I'm number one.
And for the record, if folks have not listened to the previous shows, this is one of those why should you listen to Greg moments. Just tell us a little bit about your background, and then I'm going to tee it up.
I'm going to give you the quick CV version. Soccer player since I was 4 or 5, started coaching at 15, lived abroad at 22, did a master's at 25, spent 2 years studying academic football, so research level football in all areas, and then learned to be a goalkeeping coach, even though I'm only 5'6", and got into the club game. Went from coaching, training, then directing at different types of programs, and then getting into a director of coaching position, and then now as a technical leader and then coach educator. So I've literally started at the bottom. Now we're here.
Yeah, there you go. So now let's jump right in.
Got it.
All right. So I happen to believe that an informed, empathetic, discerning, and knowledgeable parent is good for youth soccer, good for player development, and good for the clubs. Now, I use this very specifically. In no specific order. You have to be empathetic. You have to have the ability to see things and appreciate what your club, what the referees, and what your child is going through from their point of view. Okay? You have to be discerning to go beyond the packaging, go beyond the fancy leagues at times, and they have a role, right? But go beyond the surface area and find out what is in the best interest of your child and your family. If you have more than one child, multiple children, like I do, it often changes even within your family. You have to be, you should be informed. And that's where our clubs play a role in giving us the information that can help us with our soccer journey with our children. That's what this kind of podcast and content is for. And then hopefully you become knowledgeable as well. And I use this very specifically. You can have all the wisdom in the world, but if you don't have the information, you don't have to be a World War II buff to know that some of the generals, especially when Germany was having issues and about to lose the war, were afraid to give leaders accurate information. So you can be as knowledgeable on the theory in the theater as possible. Same thing in the States with Vietnam. You can be as knowledgeable about the a theater war as possible. But if your generals are afraid to give you accurate information, that knowledge can be useless. But if you are not getting if you get a lot of great information, but you don't have frameworks to transform that information into actionable steps that will help you, help your child, and help the club, and in the whole process, that information can also be useless. And then if you're just trying to win an argument, if you're only caring about your own selfish motives or your child being on the best team, blah, 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 and you're not really being empathetic to how they fit in the entire community and how they fit in the long-term development process, again, it falls down. So, and we have to be discerning, which are repeating, saying, hey, it's complicated, right? And so we have to go past the surface areas at times to have these conversations. And that's what I am trying to do with the content I produce, is for a very smaller group of parents who we're rational, reasonable people. We're not thinking our kid is going to be the next Messi necessarily, but we are human and we have these same emotions. How do we channel this stuff? Control what we can control. How can we channel this energy and enthusiasm that we have for our children into a positive force in their development? And how do we, and people get sensitive about this, but how do we evaluate if we're getting value for our money and our time when it comes to our coach and our club? Now, we can't cover all that. I offer some of my own opinions as a layman looking at this thing. But I've always said in all of our podcasts, I want to bring coaches, director coaches, players on who actually know what they're talking about to give their reactions to some of these questions. And that's what we're going to do today. Now, that was a little bit longer intro, but I really wanted to tee up the tenor of this particular part of the show because, Greg, I'm going to be honest with you, it's a very sensitive thing because people who work in youth sports, with rare exceptions, are not doing it for the money and they're not getting paid a lot and they're working countless hours. So anytime you try to talk about anything that's not glowingly praised, it's just very hurtful because you just try so hard and then people are never satisfied. So it's a very, very sensitive topic. So that's why I want to treat it with the sensitivity it deserves. We are not, at least me anyway, interested in degrading anyone or criticizing anyone unfairly or saying I can do something better. I'm not out there coaching every day, but the game is modernizing. People are investing a lot of time and money in it. So with that, we just have to elevate the conversation to some degree. So what are your general thoughts about that? And then we'll get into the specific questions.
Okay. Yeah. So first and foremost, again, thanks. That's a great question. I go back to exactly what I would ask anybody who has a child in any sporting or even hobby-based activity, right? Why are you choosing that? That general, not and then which organization and why, all those things more exceptionally. Because when as a club director, there is one similarity I found across the world. And there's one immutable fact with parents. Do you know what it is?
They want what's best for the kid.
No, they love their child. No. Now, how they express that love is a mosaic of experience, right? Like every parent is a little bit different. Some are hard, some are soft, some are in between. I know they love their kid. They want what's best for their kid. They love them. They are the next version of them, so they don't want to mess it up. Their life is messed up, so they had to get, I need another kid because my life didn't go the way I wanted it to. All right, let's give this one a chance. That is, from my perspective, guy with no kids, but watching a lot of people who do have kids and interact with them, that is my perspective. And there are some phenomenal parents, and then there are some parents that are detrimental to their child, right? So that would be the first thing. So why are you doing it? And how do you love your kid? And what is going to be best for your child? So I don't know if you asked this question, but let me tell you, parents, this is what you have to do as a parent. Okay. Support your child, prepare your child, accept your child at any level that they are, and always nourish your child. And that can be in whatever capacity you want. Okay. That is your role as parent. If there's a situation that is dangerous, not undesirable, dangerous, remove your child from that situation. Okay. Like if you see something like that is a non-negotiable, is the safety of the child is at stake, remove them. There's no, you can't leave this and you can't do that. Now, on the coaching side, right, knowing like that parents love their kids, and like a lot of times we maybe tiptoe into stuff because we know they love them, but we as coaches don't know how you like to parent. We don't know the expectations of you as a parent. Why are you here? Why are you club? So I always encourage all of my coaches, all of our staff to do pre-season surveys. Hey, what are your motivations? Parent, what are you interested in? Why are you here? What are you looking to get out of this experience? So that at the back end, if anything goes wrong, we go back to what they said. So parents, I'll tell you right now, playing time should not be a question within your environment, right? And I'm not saying you shouldn't question playing time, but all the things that a coach has to deal with, playing time is the hardest unless you have only the number of players on the field. If I play 77 and I have 7, then that's a perfect coaching situation because everybody's getting 100%. Outside of that, it's a struggle. So note that some kids can play an entire game and be functional. Some players can play 5%. They've changed the idea concept in a lot of like professional organizations, USL one of them, when they have substitute players because they don't have reentry. So the substitutes, that is not what they call them anymore. They call them game changers, right? And so if you look at a guy like Chicharito Hernandez, who played for Man United, he got in the 80th minute with 10 minutes to go and was the most effective 10-minute player. And they started him a couple times and he languished. Why? I don't know, but he was a game changer. He changed and won games. So it's not the amount of time, it's the quality of the time that you're in. Okay, so that's number one. It's also a variety of experience that you have. So playing time, if you're sitting on the bench and there's no playing time, then you ask the club, hey, I'm not getting any playing time. A, what can I work on? B, do you have another team I can play with as well? Because I'm not getting a game time. Now that may or may not be possible for your child because moving to another team now displaces another child who's in the same situation. So like, is there extra programming? Is there free programming? Go play with your friends on the street in the neighborhood. Like get that game time, but game time is not the end all be all. It's the one thing that parents focus on the most because they're paying, quote unquote, to watch their child perform, right? This is a dance recital. This is, the orchestra playing. There are going to be mistakes with children when they're practicing. Okay, test. There's going to be failures and it's going to be like, oh, you were off key. Now, don't be judgmental with your child and because it's a stressful environment. I go back to when I was in 5th grade. I had studied for the spelling bee and I knew every single word that could be asked. Every single word. I got up there, the entire auditorium, and I believe it was first round. And I go in there, the word is, walk, right? Something so simple. And when I spoke into the microphone, it reverberated. It's the first time I'd ever heard my voice on a microphone. It scared me. And I said a letter that wasn't like, it wasn't a letter. And I got shocked and I got eliminated in the first round. And I was going to win that thing, guaranteed, at least in my mind. And I didn't even afford myself. And I remember going back to the classroom, and crying the entire day about how hard I had worked to win that thing. And I didn't even lace up my boots. That's what your kids go through when you put them in performance environments where everybody's watching. Practice is easy. Nobody's watching you. It's just practice. And then you go to the game and now everybody's shouting and the chaos around you. and it's a pressure cooker, and you're second guessing yourself, and then you're telling them to do one thing, but they see something else. But gotta listen to my parents. That's what I was told. So be silent, clap, bring an empty paint drum, right? Like do something that brings energy to the system and not judgment. Coaches, exactly the same thing.
All right, so let me jump in here. So, Greg, sometimes I give my guests homework, and I'm going to give you some homework, okay? So we are going to put together, unless you already have one, a very, very simple preseason survey that coaches can use, especially our grassroots coaches can use to share with their parents at the beginning of the season. I think it'll be fun. We'll put some branding on for you guys, and it'll just be something fun that we can hand out. I mean, add to the newsletter. Say if you're starting a season and you want to have these crucial conversations up front, this is the preseason survey to get parents inside, because that actually works when you have, because we used to do it. I worked at charter schools, and the way it was quote unquote Title I, but anyways, the parents had to sign the contract before school started. They met with the school leader. They went over the terms and conditions and expectations, signed it. Boom. All the kids' teachers had to sign it. Boom. Then if there were any problems, you did not get necessarily suspended, but there were any problems where you would get suspended. In order for you to re-enter back into the school, the parent had to come back and you guys had to meet, and that contract was right there. And that really curbed potential behavior, because no kid wants their parent coming to school. And again, I'm using my air quotes, Title I school. A lot of parents, that was a sacrifice. Now I got to take off work to come to school and deal with you. But it wasn't a bunch of he said, she said per se. We went back to what you already agreed to. So we're going to put together a little PDF. I'll send you a sample, and you can.
And a lot of clubs do this with like parent code of conduct, coach code of conduct. They didn't write those documents. Those are documents that are provided by the club that try and guide the culture of the club. In a survey, you're getting the interpretation of these things from the parent and from the coach. So it goes both ways. It goes both ways. So the parent, yes, but also the coach. Like, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I stand for. And if there's something that doesn't align, that you said you're from this, but I see this, like, what's the difference? Right? And so you have to be, as coach, you have to be held accountable as well.
Now, you said something, and I missed something. These were, I would say these contracts were in between the code of conduct, a lot of that boilerplate stuff that's sent out, and a real actionable document. But I kind of mixed up something. The survey has a different purpose. So it's great to have your expectations, and we're not in the business. We can't tell somebody what their expectations should be. But the survey can be necessarily. I'm talking about other clubs. Yeah. So, but the survey is a great way to say, here are some suggested questions. You guys add your own to get alignment on what the parents' expectations are before they commit to this team, or as part of committing to this team. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so your survey should align with your core values and the club's core values and the codes of conduct. So all of them are linked. Your survey should reflect that. It should not be like, Greg Rubendall Football Club. No, your survey should align with this. So I can provide you how I would do it. Now, one of my co-coaches who right now just walked the Camino in Spain, she no longer works with us, and we found her in the pandemic because she had to go back to Canada. Louise Arsenault. If you don't know Louise, female footballer, she's a mentor guide. She has this. I'm going to adapt her player and parent survey. I'll adapt it a little bit and kind of tweak it a little bit, but it's her, the way she used it is better than any person I've ever run into, and she's phenomenal. And so it'll be a little bit mine, but I have to say I'm stealing it. I've stolen it from her. So we're good thieves, us coaches.
Yeah, and I think that would just be a great way of getting the conversation, helping other coaches see an example, and then they can take it and do what they want. I think it'll be fun.
Of course, yeah.
Now, there's something else before we jump into the specific questions you said, and this is one of those ones that on the surface people will be like, oh, that doesn't work. People know, kids know, but it actually does work. Game changer versus substitute. And I'm saying that in a broader context of one of the things I preach to parents is one of the key roles you can have is helping your child frame adversity and even frame success. So how you frame it, do you frame it, oh, you're on the bench, you're not starting? Or do you frame it as this is your opportunity? And you got to be a little careful, though, because you also don't want to frame everything as so competitive, too. So I'm not making any recommendations. I'm just saying how you frame it and the language you use can impact how your child views things. And I have seen as a coach how I've said these are the starters, and then I engage the guys that are sitting on the bench. Okay, this is what we're going to do when you get in there. You see what he's doing, and they just love it. And then when they get ready to go in, they just run in because they feel like they're being part of the game, even though they're sitting on the bench. What do you think?
This could be an entire other podcast, by the way, because this is it's game management, environment management in this regard is really important. As a parent, understand your child's role within the team. If they're the best player or worst player, have that conversation with the coach. Like, hey, what's their role? Like, oh, you know what? I see him here. Have it as an honest way. And make sure, hey, I don't care what you tell me. Be honest so that I know how to support my child. Yeah, they're probably the starting left back, but probably could be, if I move somebody, they're coming out, or the subtle nuances of that. There's a lot of layers into it. Most youth coaches are going to have their starting 11, and they're going to constantly start the same 11. I recommend with youth players, like, you're not always at the highest level. So rotate subbing. A top player, and I'll put it this way. When you get into a collegiate or professional environment, you're going a couple of steps higher than you actually are, right? So you're going into an environment where you were the best and you played all the time. You're going into an environment, look at the transfer portal. You're going into an environment, you're not the best anymore. You need to serve a function within this team. And your function may be player number 28 on, a game that plays 11v11. So you have to know and understand, I'm player 28. My job is to make the first team better. So I have to give my most in everything. I got to be the opponent in the game. I have to, inquire and be active. I think American coaches focus too much on what's going on the field, not enough about what is the player that's going to go in be able to do. We're playing puppet master and not necessarily priming the kid who's about to go on stage in the play. That's the way I would say it. So having know your role. Yeah. And if your role, if there's a little different disagreement, it's okay. If there's a big disagreement in alignment with a parent and the coach, ask questions like, okay, I see that, right? Like explain why you think that a little bit, because I don't see it that way, but I want to learn and understand why you see it that way so that we can come to an agreement in that regard. It's the same thing with coaches to parents, right?
Yeah. So
Johnny's the best on the team. How come he doesn't play?
Well, and let me tee that up. So I spend more time than I care to admit defending both groups. I'm like a defense attorney for parents, and my advice to parents is don't talk. It could be like a defense attorney. When I do my podcast, I'm like, don't talk, because when you talk, you just incriminate yourself. Let me advocate for you on your behalf. So I'm like a defense attorney for parents, going to coaches saying, I hear what you're saying, but there's some disconnects between what's said and what we're seeing. And then I'm also very empathetic to the coaches because I have coached recreational and I train kids and I deal with parents a lot as well. And through all the podcasts and the Facebook groups. And one of the admonishment I try to give parents, and this is coming from someone now who has worked with a lot of kids, the coach, whether you like it or not, is just closer to the action. And when you work with kids and you're on the field working with them in training, you have such a different and closer perspective of what's going on that may impact what they see in the games than the parent does. So this is my favorite Facebook post, and we get these all the time. And I just laugh. Here it goes. My kid is outstanding in practice. He works so hard and always gives 110%. He's a great listener. He's technical. He's so good. The other parents say he's just working so hard in training. He's doing everything possible in training. But when it comes to the game, he's not getting playing time and he's not starting. What advice do you give? And I tell parents, I'm like, look, if you frame it like that, the only advice I can give is you might need to find a better situation, a different situation, because your assumptions, you're not that close to the action. No matter what you think, you're 50 yards away. So you gotta really give the coach some grace on this and really make sure your assumptions are correct. What do you think about that?
So to that parent, which I appreciate how much you love, honor, and cherish your child. Your child is the best player on the team to you. It's the most important player on the team to you, right? So you have to understand that. But these other 14, 15 players are also the most important players to other people, right? As coach, I have to measure and balance. If what I'm going to say to you, that in my opinion, based on everything I see, my knowledge, kind of what we're doing, your child just isn't there yet. Give it time, let it breathe, open the bottle of wine, let it oxidize, and just be patient. And if you trust me, which I hope you do, if you trust me, we will continue to do this. And by the way, here are some things that are deficits now that with assistance and real hard work on their end, not your end, not my end, on their end, that if it really matters to them, then it's going to help raise their level, because this is all self-motivation, right? If you do, the other question was, does your child see themselves as that as well? Or do you just see them at that? Do your child's peers see them like that as well? Or do you just feel like that? Does the parent on the sideline says, yeah, he's doing great, placate you because you're talking nonsense and they just want to, like, they're just agreeing with you so that you stop your crazed behaviors? Or do they really believe it? So is there radical candor? Is there honesty in that conversation? Or are people saying things that you want to hear so it only accentuates your anxiety towards this thing that is not in your control? If you want to be coach, if you have the judgment, go be a coach. But first, like myself, I have 41 years of experience as a player, as a coach, as a director, as an educator. I've learned it all. If you can pass me up in all of that knowledge, right, which I'm 41 years ahead of you, then by all means, you can take my job. But until then, please trust that this is based on my experiences. And that's what I would say. And for other coaches, different.
Now, Greg, let me throw one more, and hopefully we can get to the questions. Let me throw one more nuance point at you, and then you respond. If I said that, is there any context where this may be said to a coach or has been said, not to a coach, sorry, that a coach is saying, or any context where this is true? The amount of time a kid plays at this age, or what we're trying to do with this team at this moment, there's not a linear proportional relationship between the level of skill a kid has, or even what they bring to the table, or even making it even more simple than that, how good they are and how much quote unquote playing time they get, because we're trying to work through some other stuff. Because I do think parents, and I'm very, very, very clear about this, parents are people. And parents are just a subset of people. So it has nothing to do with there is some biology there, but biologically, you having an offspring, everybody will view this. They will think, oh, the best player should be getting the most playing time, just like a professional sport. But can it be more complicated than that? Because the coach is trying to work maybe on different combinations of players. Maybe the coach understands who the opponent is. They're trying to work through this. Talk to me.
I mean, so many. Like again, as a coach, for U.S. soccer, we say there are 6 tasks of a coach. Coaching a game is only one facet. The other one's coaching training sessions, managing your performance environment, leading players individually, and then leading players as a team, and then your self leadership. So there's a lot on the plate of a coach. It is not just show up with a coffee and hope that we kick the ball between the posts and under the bar more than the others. If they are truly coaches that care, there are a lot of people, roll the ball out PE teachers. We all are familiar with those. Schools that say we need 30 minutes of physical activity, walk around the outside of the field for 30 minutes. Come on, what does that give a kid? I mean, are they going to be a Formula One walking racer? I don't think so. So the answer to that is really, understand your environment. Kids should be getting anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes of active play per day, right? Be a jack of all trades. And then around the time where personality really becomes and identity really becomes valuable, around 12, 13, 14, which we see the dropout rates. It's not dropout rate. It's more differentiation rate. The bigger problem is where's the attrition when you have a kid who plays the first year and doesn't play the second year? Whatever that is, that experience, it was that experience. Like, I didn't like that, right? So early specialization, terrible idea for children. Early specialization to only do one thing unless you have all the physical literacy skills taken care of through other activities. And in modern American society, where physical education used to do that, we don't do that. So it's creating, it's limiting the full potential of a child by specializing early. Not to say, I mean, I run a soccer club and, we have programming and this and that, and it's all year round. Like, of course, I want kids to be playing all the time. I want to be working with them, but we vary our programming. We change it up. We speed it up. We slow it down. We recognize when other sports, are in high end, and then we are in high end, right? So we kind of give and take at the younger ages. But a parent has to select and choose. What I would say is don't put your kid in 72 different activities because you think it's going to make them better. It's going to make them tired and inefficient. So find the ones that they really like try them all, on a, not even recreational, on a, hey, let's go to the music store and try the trombone. Ooh, I really like that. Okay, now let's maybe think about it, right? And because you know what? A couple days later, they're going to be like, yeah, I don't really like trombone. It's hard. And they throw the trombone away. And you're like, oh, but I just spent all this money. They're kids. They are exploring what they like. And some are going to accept a challenge in one area and not another.
All right. So now we're going to go. We got one or two more questions, and then we're going to wrap this one up. And Greg, I'm going to get you back on the show, man, after I do a few more interviews, and you'll listen to them, and then you'll give your perspective. I actually wouldn't mind doing a specific show. We'll do this in the future, just on the conversations you need to have, because I really think I like that before the season even starts, and that survey, that could be part of it. So let's just go through a speed round. So I wrote an ebook called 20 or more questions that every parent should ask their club, and every club should be able to answer. Now, it's really more of a thought exercise. It's not designed to go ask these questions. It's really more of a thought experiment of saying these are the things that I've learned over the last 10 years as a consumer, and I'm sharing this with you guys, the reader, saying these are some of the things I wish someone would have broken down to me. Now, we're running short on time, so I'm just going to rattle off some of the questions. I'm going to rattle off 5 of them, and then you're going to give me your answer. Go ahead.
Okay. So what I think it's even better. 1 through 5, 5 being, this is an excellent question. 1 being that has 0 value. You ask the question, I'll give a number, and then we can talk in the future as to why I graded it that way. But you just ask the question, and I'll tell you 1 through 5, high value, low value.
Okay, cool. So the first question is, what's your long-term plan for player development, and how do you measure whether or not it's working?
This is a very difficult question for a coach to answer who doesn't know and understand long-term athletic development. So it's a 5 to ask, but the coach is probably not going to give a sufficient answer. So you're setting yourself up
for the
for failure
club,
then.
though. I know, but this.
For the club, 5.5 then. Club better have an answer.
These are directed to the club.
The club, not the coach. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Now this
club
one is not. This is not worded correct. This next one is not worded perfectly because a club can have an overall vision, mission, or whatever. So I want you to take this one, and you don't have to quote unquote answer it. But how would you interpret it? If I said, "What is your club's philosophy?"
Mm-hmm. I would say it's a 5. It's a 5. It's a 5 to ask. The follow up to that is, and how do you see it expressed in what you do?
Yeah. So
what's your philosophy? And then I'm saying that would you. So if my value is like teamwork, so we're really high on teamwork. Okay, so how do you expect my U10 daughter to understand teamwork? That would be the follow up question to the club.
Yeah,
because I want to know teamwork at 18 and teamwork at 3 is different.
I think that's good. And then I'm going to add one more piece to that I put in the ebook is what you just said, how, and then what resources are you putting forth to achieve this goal? So if teamwork is one of your pillars, obviously one research is you have resources, you have teams, and you have coaches, but is it Zoom? I'm just making a Zoom meetings, or is it building? Oh God, I'm missing the word. But collaboration exercises. Is it off campus things? I don't know. I'm just making it up. But what resources? Is it financial resources? Are you bringing in speakers to speak about teamwork? So that would be something that I would look for if I'm being very critical in terms of what resources are you applying to make that happen. Okay, so the next one is, man, I love this. I wish I had more time, but I don't. I have to hop for another one. I love this. Does your club follow a specific game model? And if so, what does that look like? So first of all, what is a game model in your opinion?
A game model is within the 4 phases of the game. We have the ball, they have the ball, and then the transition moments to and from. What are you expecting to see in every one of those phases? So a game model is kind of like when I go and watch the, San Francisco 49ers, the game model of last year and the game model of this year is different, right? It's like they're trying to do it, but they have so many injuries. It's a nightmare. So like you have to adapt to your group. So your game model is how you want to play. This is who you are and who you stand for in a global sense.
Now, I will say this, since you brought the San Francisco 49ers, one thing the NFL does through their media apparatus, going all the way back to NFL films, is they do a great job of educating even the most layman observer to make you feel like you are an expert in football. So they explain to you exactly, I can hear Troy Aikman now, this is what they're trying to do. This is how they're trying to do it. This is why what they're trying to do doesn't work. And I think, when we talk about American culture, we might need to integrate a little bit more of that into our soccer media.
Our commentators in America, it's why most of them are international, whether South American or English, and where it's so critical of American commentators, because most of them are former players that may not have the details, subtle nuances of all of these things. They just know them as players, and it's a little bit more dry and not as in-depth. So that might also be a reason why the players internationally are better, because their commentators are better.
Yeah, because I do think you can learn a lot from, and then again, we talked about immersed culture. Man, speed round. Now, I'm about to bring you back on just for these topics again, but all right, the questions keep going. How do you define player development?
Okay. Development is the education of the player. Player development is the education of the player. So there are 5 different domains more. So physical, technical, tactical, psychological, social. You can add in emotional as well in there. So 6. But it is how is the player being stretched in the different areas in different ways. That is player development.
Now, and then the final question in this little question, I think I have to bring you back on for this, is this gets into your club's origin story, or at least in this case, it would be you, the director of coaches' origin story on why do you want to develop players? And I know that we start with why. I know that seems like, of course, everybody wants to, but it can be, hey, like we talked about, I was listening to your podcast they talked about entrepreneurship. It could be, hey, you see a gap in the market. We're going to develop players because there's a need. You're part of a community. We're going to develop players because no one else is doing it. You could be a parent like me who wants to develop their own children. What they're doing is working. Now other players. So why do you want to develop players in the first place?
So are you talking about in America in general or me personally?
You personally, what makes you get out of bed in the morning and do this when you could be doing so many other things?
There was a coach of mine who just texted me. His name is Adolfo Trujillo. Adolfo Trujillo's dad was the understudy to Jorge Campos in Mexico. Family immigrated to the U.S., and Adolfo was a top talent, a kid you played 2 years up when he was 10. He got to a physical age where he had to go back down to his age group. We ended up winning the state championship. The next year, we sent him 2 years up again. He ended up playing for the Quakes. Was kind of a nomad in like semi-professional amateur game, but Adolfo is now working at Fusion with us. He's he's literally 4 months into coaching. He does private training, things like that. And we have an upcoming coaching course that's being sponsored and run by La Liga. It's $150 to get this La Liga certification methodology. And I said, are you interested in going to this course? Can you get there? He's in Mexico right now. Can you get there? Yes, I will pay for you to go to this course, Adolfo, because I was the guy who I drove him to all these events that allowed him to be scouted. His parents worked way too hard, had 7-8 people in a 2-bedroom apartment, right? Sleeping on top of each other. This kid was a phenomenal talent. The best player I have ever worked with was such raw talent. I didn't even know how to coach him. All I needed to do was put him in harder situations, and he just would do. And I would say interview Adolfo first before you have me back on, because his experiences would be extremely unique, and it would be interesting to see what his perception was of me as a coach or his progress as a player trying to figure it all out. Top talent, right? So I do it so that I can inspire kids to stay in the game as long as they possibly can. And when they're not getting to that playing level anymore, that they come into the game as a coach and share the knowledge. Like the people who influenced me to become a coach, I want to influence him to be a coach. That's why I do this.
All right. So this is the last question. And man, I have another interview lined up, but I would just continue to roll. I want to bring you back on. We're in the elevator. The elevator has 25 floors. You're on your way. You're in Chicago. You're on your way to pitch why you should become the next president of U.S. Soccer. And we have all decided that you get a blank piece of paper. You can do whatever you want, and whatever you're going to do, it's going to happen. What is your 3-minute elevator pitch before we get to the top of before we get to our floor? You have to give the long presentation. What are some of the big rocks you would love to tackle if you were in charge of U.S. Soccer and you had a specific focus on player development at the youth level?
Yep. I don't need 3 minutes. I don't need 25 floors. Look at my resume, my CV, everything I've done. Trust me, I will not fail our future. Solo pa'lante, which is only forward. That would be my pitch. Trust me, because if I don't know the answer to something, I definitely know somebody who does. And there are a lot of people in the way, but there are stairs that we can climb together, and we all want what's best for these kids. So trust me. If you think I'm the guy, then trust me. You said I'm the guy. I'm telling you, you're right.
Guys, this has been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful 3-part series. I wish we had more time. I feel like we're on CNN. You know how they frustrate me sometimes because
I got to do laundry. I'm going to get yelled at. I was supposed to turn the laundry. This went too long.
Yeah, I feel like we're on the cable news stations, but now I'm beginning to understand why they do this. They're like, oh, they ask you this really hard question, and they're like, and we only got 2 minutes, So I felt that way. That's why I'm going to invite you back on to talk about these questions specifically again. But anyways, I've sat down with Greg Rubendall, who is the director of coaching at Livermore Fusion Soccer Club, Northern California. I love that. What are you showing us?
Hey, I'm giving a shout out to Breda Women. They play in the 3rd division in Holland. It's the first year that they are a club. They won the championship. They won promotion. We got a deep dive into their club when I went. Amazing group of kids. The best culture I've ever seen. Excellent staff, excellent facilities. I'm giving them a shout out. So even though I have to tell you, Neil, our rival club is black and gold, I have to preface it with Breda.
Oh my goodness. So guys, this has been a great one. My name is Neil, I'm the founder of Anytime Soccer Training, also the host of the Inside Scoop. Greg, thank you so much for your time, man. And guys,
Been my pleasure.
Let's get better together. Thank you.